from each happily ever after, every wish upon a star. Let's break down the movies that shaped who we are, from memory lane to now and everything in between. The most famous of films to the ones we've never seen. Decade by decade, all the times we laughed and cried, and with a little pixie dust, they will all take flight, reliving the feelings, and we're trying our very best. And if they mean the same to you, please be our guest. So hop aboard, we would love to have you as we hang with a certain mouth, the whole gang too. If you love nostalgia stuff, we hope this does the trick. Thanks for joining us as we deep dive the magic.
Hi, and welcome back to the Deep Diving the Magic podcast. I'm KJ.
And I'm Jeffrey. And we hope that everybody had a nice Mother's Day and a nice Mother's Day weekend. But we are back today with the 93rd Disney feature-length film from March the 21st, 1969. We are deep diving a movie called Smith. To be exact, it is Smith, because it's Smith, exclamation point. There's not a lot of notes about the movie Smith. I, for a while, didn't even think that we would be able to find it, but we found it. So would you like to start us off with a synopsis about Smith?
Yes, so Gabriel Jimmy Boy flees when he is accused of murder.
Smith! So...
What'd you say it was called?
Smith! This film is irritating through today's eyes. Now, I know that we did the Davy Crockett films, all those films, but this movie came out in 1969. It's irritating through today's eyes, but I looked at it a lot, kind of through like The Catcher in the Rye eyes, where it's like it sticks the landing, but a lot of this is very do better Disney.
No.
But do you have anything before we dive right in? And I'll let you have most of the breakdown. But
well, I mean, like you said, do better Disney. I feel like this movie would have been canceled had it came out today.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't have even made it as far. But I'm going to turn it over to you to go ahead and give us like the actual like running. But I'm going to start us off. It starts off with the opening credits. And there's a song that right away is not super appropriate, and there's some etchings in the wall that are not super appropriate. But again, we start off on a farm, but I'm going to turn over to you to kick us off.
All right, so we end up on a ranch, and
Buttermilk Ranch.
It belongs to a guy named
Smith,
and he lives there with his wife, and I'm assuming his son, possibly stepson. I don't know if we ever determined, because he never calls him dad like he calls his mom. He calls him
Smith. But the dad's not home to start to kick us off.
Yeah. So the dad's coming back home. He's been gone for 3 days, I think.
Yeah, basically, as we learned in previous Western films have awful fathers. They just go away. Like, they remember Davy Crockett? He just like left his family all the time.
Anyway, he was actually off trying to find some of their cattle, I believe. So, I mean, it wasn't like he didn't have a reason to be.
Yeah, so we meet the boy who is like trying to ride the horse, and he's like trying to like goat the horse in with like a apple. And I thought to myself, do the horses just eat the whole entire apple?
Yeah.
Like core and all?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So he has an Appaloosa horse, and he was told that his dad is going to break the horse so that way he can ride it. And he's going to use the help of old Antoine, which we find out is a First Native person's, who is going to break the horse for him because apparently the only way you can break an Appaloosa is to talk to it in whatever their First Nation people tribe was. I'm not sure.
It never talks about what tribe it is.
Anyway, apparently they're the only ones that can break an Appaloosa, so he's gonna have him do it. So anyway, he's trying to ride the horse. He gets thrown off the horse. The dog starts barking because he sees
Smith.
come back on his horse. He went to go find some of the cattle that was gone. And the boy Alpy runs out to tell him that mom is so mad because he has been gone for 3 days and didn't say anything. And she said that anybody could have came and murdered them and da 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 da. And she's been walking around the house with the gun.
Yeah, so the mother is played by the lady from the Flubber movies. The wife from the Flubber movies.
I thought she looked
So
familiar.
she knows how to pick those guys, huh? Forget their wedding because they're doing scientific experiments, leaving the family because whatever. I mean, that's
okay. So anyway, so he knows he's about to be in trouble when he goes into the house with her, and she tells him there's something going on in that shack on the other side of the meadow.
Mhm.
And she basically tells
which is
him,
where old Antoine lives. So go ahead.
I don't think he lives there. I think he just goes there. She tells him that she's seen Antoine go there and he had Gabriel Jimmy Boy with him and he had a gun and he's wanted for murder and you need to get him off our land. And just through conversation, we find out that Smith has basically grown up with the First Native people and he is close with them. He's friends with them. He's grown up with them his whole life. He can actually speak the same language they do with them
remotely.
So they trust him and he trusts them. So he lets them come and he helps them out as any way he can, which frustrates his wife because they've been struggling. They don't have a lot and it could be whatever the last of whatever they have. And he's going to give it to them to help them as well because he knows that if they had it, they would help him. But then Antoine shows up at the house and he's looking for some kerosene for his lamp. And Smith and family have him over for dinner. And then the mother butts in and asks him about who's in the shack with him. And he basically just gets up and leaves. And Smith tells her, well, you shouldn't have done that. Like, whatever. And he told him to come back in the morning to have breakfast because he was trying to get her to stay out of it. And then she's like, well, you need to go up there and see because they're on our land and that can get us in trouble too. So he's like, well, fine, I'll go talk to him and see what's going on. And she grabs the shotgun from over the door frame and goes to hand it to him. And he's like, what's that for? And she tells him, well, he's a murderer. And Smith just declines to take it from her. And he's like, well, I'm not. And then he walks out the door.
Also,
any thoughts there?
The only thing I would add there is, so basically Smith, he's a good guy. I mean, he's not a great father. He disappears, but he's good to his friends.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same, so the son also has a friend named Peter, right?
Well,
because Peter,
yes, because he ran in at this time.
Peter also comes in.
Peter Paul
comes in to like ask if the son can play.
I swear, throughout this movie, if you were a First Nations person, you had two names.
Yeah, Peter Paul.
Peter Paul.
I have a friend named Peter Paul.
Well, good for you. Is he in this movie? No. All right. So, anyway, Smith is on his way to the shack. He passes the sheriff. And the sheriff and the deputy have two dogs in the back of the car. They've been trying to track down Gabriel Jimmy Boy. And They can't find him. So they ask Smith, have you seen Gabriel Jimmy Boy? And he said he hadn't seen him, which is not a lie. He hasn't seen him. He doesn't know. And then the sheriff tells him that he is going to go look around at the shack. And then Smith, very Jay-Z like, says, you're going to need a warrant for that.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, well, really? And he's like, yeah, you're going to need a warrant to go search that. So you can't go do that. So he leaves to go get a warrant. The sheriff's upset that he has to go do this. And then Smith goes on to the shack. He goes to see Antoine. When he walks in, because there's only one front door, there's not another door to the entire building. Jimmy Boy pulls a gun on him.
He walks into a gun in my face. Yeah.
Yeah, and Antoine tells him that Jimmy Boy doesn't like it there because there's only one door. But he's been trying to talk to Jimmy Boy. And he told him that Smith could probably help. So Smith basically is trying to convince Jimmy Boy that he should turn himself in. And then Antoine tells him he should also do that and that he will speak for him. So they're trying to convince him, like, you got to do this because you'll have like a fair trial. You can't run away to Canada because they'll just come chase you up there and then they'll bring you back.
Yeah, he wants to run. Jimmy Boy wants to run to Canada.
Yeah. So basically they're telling him he can't do that. And I'm pretty sure this movie took place in Wisconsin. Or was that another? This one was Idaho? The other one was Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway,
which is still bordering Canada.
Yeah. So anyway, Smith asks Antoine if he knows what happened. And then Antoine starts telling him about something that happened like, I don't know, like 90 years or something ago. And he is like, well, how's the past? What happened way in the past going to help? But he doesn't really like explain anything else. And then Antoine tells Smith he will have Jimmy Boy, he will turn in Jimmy Boy and collect the $500 reward and take the money and get him a lawyer. And Jimmy Boy doesn't like this idea.
Around the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So Smith's been gone a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So the mother's getting worried. So the mother grabs the gun and she goes to the shack herself.
Yep. And Smith basically tells her, you shouldn't have done that. You could have got us both killed. And basically tells her, well, they're going to leave. He's going to turn himself in. So the next day, the boys are poking around at the shack, and Alpy asks Peter Paul, does he look like a murderer? And they get to the window, and Alpy stands on Peter Paul's back. So Peter Paul is like down on the ground on all fours, and Alpy gets on his back to kind of like look in the window. So he's standing on his back, and the dog, Charlie, licks Peter Paul, causing him to lose his balance, and Alpy falls off. And Peter Paul gets startled at all of this and basically yells, run, he's got a gun, I saw it. And then Alpy tells him he didn't see anybody because there was nobody in there, and that if he didn't believe him, he can go look in the window himself. But I thought that was humorous.
Boys being boys.
Yeah. And then the boys run into Jimmy Boy, and they tell him
up at the
copper mine.
Yeah, it's like a mine or something.
So the boys run into Jimmy Boy, and they tell him that they'll get him food, and then Jimmy Boy tells them that Smith is a good man, and that they'll come back and they'll whistle a certain way so that way that he'll know it's them. And he kind of like smiles at them when they go. And then it cuts back to a scene where we're back at Smith's house, and Walter Charlie, who is another First Nations people who basically goes around like translating for people.
He's not a great person though.
No. He shows up at Smith's on a bike, and he tells him that he would give him $150 if he will turn Jimmy Boy in, which made no sense because they were offering 500.
Yeah, so basically, so like he'll keep the 350 and he'll give 150, which is I couldn't look. I don't know when this movie took place, so I didn't know, but just know that that's a lot of money,
Yeah.
and this family needs the money.
Yep. So the wife shows back up and she asks him what Walter wanted, and he tells her about the money to turn Jimmy Boy in, and she asks, "Cash?"
They need the money.
This woman, how she married Smith is beyond me. But anyway.
I mean, she has this whole monologue earlier that we didn't talk about where it would be canceled today just from her monologue alone earlier. She was not great.
Yeah.
Person to start this film.
So anyway, the sheriffs and the dogs go to search the shack. The Smith tells the sheriff that he is hiding him in the old copper mine. So they come back with their warrant. They're searching, and he's like, "Well, we found this piece of whatever cloth or something, and it has Jimmy Boy scent all over it. We could have you for contempt." And he's like, "Oh yeah, like I'm hiding him over there in the old copper mine." So basically, they take off with the dogs towards the copper mine, and that's when Alpy comes up and tells Smith, actually, he is in the copper mine because Peter, Paul, and I saw him there yesterday, and we gave him food.
Yeah, so Smith thinks that he's like either already on his way to Canada or already on his way to be turned in. Like he's not on the property at all anymore.
But he is. And that's when Smith looks over at Alpy and he's like, "Well, we've got to get there before they do, because if they get there first, there'll be guns fired."
Actually, first, he threatens to hit his son. Awful.
Whatever. Anyway,
so the dogs go into this copper mine.
I'm not there yet.
Oh, that's on my notes. Sorry. Go ahead.
Listen. Anyway, so there was basically a race to see if Smith can get there before the sheriff and the dogs. The sheriff gets there, yells that they are there, and that he has 5 seconds to come out or they will come in and get him. Nobody comes out when they count to 5, so they let the dogs go into the mine. The dogs come back out without anybody, and basically at this point the 2 sheriff guys have to take off running after the dogs. The dogs track Jimmy Boy to the sheriff's department.
Yep, literally to the door of the sheriff's department.
As he and Antoine came in to turn him in, the chief lets Antoine turn in Jimmy Boy for the reward and tells the officer to lock up the prisoner. This guy is so upset because he has been working this case.
Yeah.
And you're just going to let him turn him in and give him the money?
So the sheriff dude was in previous Disney movies too, and it's just like funny because he has like this stupid little mustache, and like he's like supposed to be all serious, but he's like the guy from all the other films too.
Yeah. All right. So Smith goes to the jail to talk with Jimmy Boy and tells him to take it easy and that he will get a fair trial and stop thinking about being hanged. Jimmy Boy asks him if he believes that he did it or not, and then Smith tells him he believes him because he wouldn't have came otherwise. And then the officer tells Smith that Jimmy Boy killed Sam Hardy, which is the whole reason why he's wanted for murder. They say he murdered this man.
Because they saw him leaving out the window.
Yeah, and he will be hanged because he killed Sam Hardy. Smith tells the officer he is running over with humanity, basically being sarcastic. Aren't you just running over with humanity? And calls him out on his twisted ways. Because it looks like the officer basically could have stopped this a long time ago because Sam Hardy was doing some shady business, and it sounded like the officer was making some money on the side from this, and he basically could have stopped.
Yeah, kind of like a prohibition type thing.
Yeah. And it sounds like Sam Hardy was somebody that would take advantage, commonly known as someone who would take advantage of the First Nations people. Mm-hmm. So then he comes out of the jail, and Walter Charlie took advantage of Antoine and took the reward money to buy himself a car to take Antoine to the trial for Jimmy Boy. Smith is fuming. Needless to say, this car was $499.95. Just enough money to get a root beer.
He wanted a root beer.
All right, so this car,
Was it convertible?
$499.95. It's a convertible, but it also, unlike just missing the top, it's also missing the brakes.
Mhm.
They aren't working that great. So Walter's showing off. He almost hits his car and ends up running it off the road and into a pond. And then
He calls it a nice four-wheel canoe.
He gets so upset and he asks Smith, he's like, now what am I supposed to do with this? And then Smith tells him, go get a paddle and you'll have yourself a nice four-wheel canoe.
Yeah.
And helps old Antoine out of the car. Smith is then back at home and he's making a package to take to Jimmy Boy. One of the canned items he's including is sardines because he keeps like walking around the house trying to find out, oh, do you think he would like sardines? I'm just going to take them anyway. And he's just like putting all of the stuff in a care package for Jimmy Boy. Then he asks his wife to wrap the package and he'll be back and he'll deliver it this afternoon. He then tells her that they are going to have the best feed crop this year and runs off once again.
Yeah, she's nervous about money. Like,
Yeah.
she is really concerned. She even like says here that she has, I forgot how much money saved up. It's not very much.
Like 70 something bucks.
Yeah.
As her disaster fund. But I thought to myself, she has not done anything nice this entire movie, and you're going to ask her to wrap the care package.
Sure.
She's probably going to put it all back away in the house. Anyway, so the people with the feed contract show up at the property, and they basically tell Smith that they're going to go watch the trial of Jimmy Boy. And he's like, well, I've got all this hay that needs to be done. Like, we have to do this, or like, I need this to be done. We need the money. And they're like, oh, it'll still be hot when the trial's over, and then we'll help you. It's not going to take that long. But basically it does. So they all run off to go watch the trial for Jimmy Boy. And then Smith, his wife, and Albie are kind of all lost for words and trying to figure out how to do it. And then at this point, old Alexander comes. He shows up to tell Smith that Antoine is in jail. And he basically reports that Antoine sent him to get Smith because Antoine went to the wrong court and got himself arrested as the wrong person.
Because he wasn't speaking English.
Yeah.
He got nervous and he stopped speaking English.
Yeah. But the English he did speak was just yes. Mm-hmm. And basically he got arrested for being drunk the night before. And they're like, were you drunk the night before? And yes. But it wasn't even him. So poor old Antoine.
So now Antoine can't speak for Jimmy Boy.
Yeah, because he's in jail. So Smith tells his wife that he has to go help Antoine. He has to speak for Jimmy Boy as his life depends on it. And the wife is just furious and tells him to go and not come back as she will cut the crop all by herself with scissors.
But
then she knows that she married a good man and she's not a good person, basically. So I guess has a change of heart and gives him her disaster fund to go to the trial and tells him to go before she blows her top. Then she tells him someone needs to watch out for those boys and he needs to take Alpie with him so that he can see how the world works.
So now Smith has like $76 or something like that.
Yeah. So Jimmy Boy is in a room with his lawyer and Jimmy Boy tells him that Antoine will speak for him. Then calls his lawyer a chicken. He basically tells him, you can talk real good here, but in the court, you talk chicken.
It just, this is a complete side note here, but it just reminded me of that scene in the Pirates of the Caribbean where the dude is like getting like dropped into the well, and the lady in the window is like, "Don't be a chicken."
Yes, I can see that.
Yeah.
So then it cuts to another scene, and Smith and Alpy are in the truck. They are talking about the case and how they have to let Jimmy Boy go. And Smith tells Alpy that there are a lot of people who don't like the First Nations people. And then Alpy basically asks him, but why? Peter Paul is my best friend and Antoine is your friend.
Yeah.
So like, why don't they? And he's just basically, well, some people in the world just aren't like that. So then they end up going into this, like, I don't know, it's kind of like a bar or restaurant to get food. They sat down with Walter Charlie and basically order 2 orange juices, and then Walter Charlie's talking to him. He's like, yeah, I can't find Antoine. He's like, oh, well, you wouldn't be able to find him. He's in jail. And he's like, well, how did you know he's in jail? And this lady is trying to get the order, and she's like, coffee, milk, or tea, or something like that.
Which makes no
coffee,
sense.
milk, or tea. Coffee, milk, or tea.
Which
And she
makes
keeps
no
saying
sense to me because they just ordered orange juice.
you can have 2 beverages at breakfast. Anyway, so he says, I'll have a coffee, and do you want milk, Alpy? And then Alpy goes, coffee. And he's like, milk. He's like, Mom says that I'm old enough to see how the world works. And he goes, 2 coffees. so Alpy gets his first coffee. And basically something happens in the bar. I don't remember exactly. But Walter Charlie has upset someone, and he hits someone in the shoulder or something and makes them spill their drink on him. And basically he's like about to get beat up. And then Smith intercedes and stops it. And then somebody runs into the back and tells the guy, somebody's about to beat up Walter Charlie. And at this point, Smith has Walter Charlie by the jacket telling him, you got to leave so they don't hurt you. And then the guy just assumes that Smith was the guy that was going to hurt him.
Mm-hmm.
So he punches him in the face. And then
at least he was on the right side. Yeah.
Yeah. And then all the people that were like causing the problem with Walter Charlie basically jumped the guy that hit him and said, no, that's his friend. That's his friend.
Yeah.
So, and then he's like, I'm so sorry. You should have told me. Like, he's like, I'm just always upset that everybody's always like picking on the First Nations people, and I don't stand for that. So I was going to put a stop to it. Sorry, you should have told me.
Yeah.
And
they both got some blows on each other.
Exactly. And then Smith goes back and he sits down with Alpy and he tells him there's 2 times that you get in trouble for helping the First Nations people. The first time when you hurt them, and the second time is when you help them. Mm-hmm. So I guess that's the way the world works sometimes for them. So you have to be careful what you're doing because not everybody is nice. I guess that was a good lesson to show him. Mm-hmm. So then the next scene, Smith shows up at the court with Antoine and Alpy. The cop says there's no more allowed in the courtroom until recess. And then Antoine just slips by him. And the cop runs in behind and goes, I'm so sorry. He snuck behind me. Da, da, da. And then the lawyer asks him to come on up. And the judge is like, no, just bring him on up. And then the lawyer asks, what exactly happened that night?
To Antoine.
And then Walter Charlie then helps Antoine to the stand to interpret for him. And then Antoine brings up this old war story, and the lawyer is trying to get him to talk about the case to help Jimmy Boy. And he basically just says he remembers a time with Chief Justice spoke to him, and everybody in the court just starts laughing. And Smith gets upset and gets called up to the front. And the judge and the lawyer allow Smith to talk to Antoine. And then he asks Smith to interpret for him. And Antoine says Smith is like his own son and he speaks from his heart. And the lawyer agrees that he will allow this to interpret allow Antoine
To interpret for
to have Smith interpret for him. And then the prosecution also agrees as long as the original interpreter stays in to verify. So the judge asks Antoine again to tell him everything he knows about the case. And basically, what he tells Smith to tell them is the law is very hard and a very cold thing, and they cannot understand the law. But he can remember, well, he basically said, I remember that day very well. Yes, I remember that day very well. I was in Bear Paw country of Montana. We came to the place to hear Chief Joseph. Hear me, chiefs. Hear me, my chiefs. Once again, the white savages have broken their promise to us and drove us from the land that was told to be ours. We have marched 100 miles. We have fought the soldiers 4 times our numbers. I am tired of fighting. All the old men have been killed by the white savages. We can fight no more. Our people are cold. There is no blanket. Our people are hungry. There is no meat. I want to ride off to the snow hills to look for my children. Maybe I will find them dead. Hear me, my chiefs. I am tired. My heart is sick and sad. Where the sun now stands, we fight no more. And then you kind of like look around the courtroom, and there's some people that are actually in tears. I don't know if you noticed it.
Mhm.
And then it looks like everybody pretty much is touched by this.
including the jury.
Yeah, and definitely the jury. And then the judge thanks Antoine for coming to speak for his friend and tells him that he may go. And then when Smith and Antoine are walking out, the sheriff's deputy makes a snide comment like, oh, where did you get him? And basically causes a fight to break out in the courtroom between him and Smith. And then the judge has them clear the court and has Smith brought to his chambers. The judge fines Smith $50 for contempt of court. Smith laughs and tells him it was worth it. He tells him that his wife won't like it very much, but it was sure worth it. Then the judge tells him that there is an additional fine of 30 days in jail.
Yeah, because basically, so it was originally like $50 or 30 days in jail.
Yeah.
And Smith was like, all right, I'll just pay it. It was worth beating up this jerk because the dude was a jerk with his stupid
Yeah.
mustache. He was a jerk. And then like he was just instigating a problem.
Yeah.
He, Clue was making money on the side. He's just an issue. So then he gets arrested, but then Smith like freaks out. He says, I only got like $16 more because it cost me $10 to bail out. You can talk about that. It cost $10 to bail out Antoine earlier. So he only has like 16 more bucks. And then Smith is like, I it's hay season. I need to go back to work.
Mhm.
My family needs this money. I have all the money right here. And he's like, well, you shouldn't have beat up a cop in my court. Okay, back to you.
So the prosecution, so then it shoots over to the prosecution and the defense lawyers talking together as they're walking out of the court. And the prosecution asks the defense where he got Antoine. And the prosecution tells him that he knows that he is lost, and that was the best plea deal, or the best plea he had ever heard for self-defense, and tells him to buy him lunch because that's the most he could do for him. And the defense attorney is basically not even convinced that they've won, but
Everybody else is.
the prosecution's like, no, you definitely won. And then we find out that the jury lets Jimmy Boy go on terms of self-defense on the night in question. And we also find out what's funny.
Because you just quoted it, but you missed like the best part of it. So like
Alpy
the whole time is like he must have like taken some sort of class in school.
He said he watched it. He watched something on TV, and
there was TVs.
I guess during that time, because they were talking. I don't know, because he said something about,
or he read a book or whatever.
And they talk about the night in question.
He's
like, so what do we know about the night in question?
So like afterwards, they're all celebrating. Like there's like a rousing party afterwards where they're like singing songs. The First Nation people are singing songs, and there's a fire.
Yeah.
And like Peter Paul was like talking about how he got out, and then Alpie's like, no, they let him go on a kind of self-defense on the night in question because he was like
Yeah.
quoting his thing. He was all proud of himself. Back here.
Anyway, so then we find out that Antoine has been staying on the steps of the courthouse and will do so until Smith is let out of jail, as Smith is a good man.
The steps are hard though.
I'm not
sit on the
done.
steps. Okay, go ahead.
So anyway, the judge asked the lawyer if he will vouch for the good behavior of Smith, and he will, and he says he will. And then basically at this point, the judge finds out that Antoine can speak some English, and he says, well, if I let him go, will you talk to me? And he says, you let Smith go and I will talk plain to you.
Mhm.
And he basically tells him that Smith is a good man. He doesn't deserve to be locked up. And he's like, well, you can't stay on the courthouse steps for 30 days. And he's like, no, the steps are hard. I sit over in the grass.
Yeah. Because it's illegal. It's illegal to sit on the courthouse steps. So
he's been sitting in the grass. Anyway, and then it cuts over back to home, and Nora and Alpie are cutting the hay at home, and they are just way in over their head for two people.
I mean, I'd be a my own man too.
But then this 400 and I think they brought the car back, right? The $499 car.
I don't know. Everything they own is riding on this hay crop.
I thought did they come back in the car?
He comes back in the car.
But the one that went in the water?
Yeah.
Okay, I guess they got it out of the water and it still works. Anyway, so Smith gets out of jail, and Nora is so mad at him, and Smith tells her that he had some time to think while he was in jail, but then all of a sudden, all Smith's First Nation friends come with their big hay mowers to help them with their crop, and Nora tells them that she will get the food ready because they told her they would be cutting hay until the moon comes up. And then Antoine tells Smith, no need to worry about the hay. I told you. And that he will stay and he will break the horse for the boy. And then Smith is told that he is like a big tree in the grass when the sun is very hot. And that's what all of their people say about Smith. And then it pops up the end.
Yep, the song from the beginning plays again. And they're going to get the money from the hay. And
yeah, I mean, it definitely probably, like you said, probably wouldn't have ever made it to production at this point. But all in all, I think it did teach a good lesson.
It taught a good lesson. In the beginning, I was like, oh.
Yeah. I definitely hated Nora. I did start to like her a little bit more towards the end. I still don't think she's as good as hearted as Smith.
Well, that's because the movie's not called Nora. The movie's called Smith.
Anyway, so it was a movie.
It was a movie. That's what we're doing here.
It runs an hour and 52 minutes if you're interested and you're a completist and you want to watch it too. Y'all tell us what you think about Jeremy Boy. So IMDb rated this a 5.7 out of 10. Because of the ending and how everything worked out, I gave it a 6 out of 10.
Yeah. So did it make your list upon a star then?
It did not break its way into my list.
So then what is your list through March of 1969?
So my list is 101 Dalmatians, The Parent Trap, Sleeping Beauty, Dumbo, The Jungle Book, Lady and the Tramp, That Darn Cat, The Three Caballeros, Moon Pilot, and The Shaggy Dog.
Yeah, so mine is also staying the same. Mine is 101 Dalmatians, Mary Poppins, Peter Pan, Alice in Wonderland, Babes in Toyland, Pinocchio, The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Sleeping Beauty, and lastly, The Jungle Book. So yeah, have you ever watched Smith?
Or even heard of it?
Yeah, because it's, but hey, if you're a completist, watch it. But thank you for watching. thank you for your comments and liking and sharing. We are on Instagram. We are on Spotify. We are on YouTube. But yeah, next time we will be back with the 94th Disney feature-length film. And that is from June of 1969 with another film that I bet you haven't heard of because it's called Rascal. We'll see you then.
Thanks for deep diving the magic.
Bye.
Bye.